It is Monday, and today I'm going to teach you guys about something that is extremely common and a major problem for so many women that are menstruating. So this is what we're going to talk about is blood sugar and something called polycystic ovarian syndrome. We've been talking over the past several live sessions that I've done. I've been talking a lot about blood sugar and inflammation and how that affects different hormones. And today one of the things that I'm really going to talk about is I want to talk about polycystic ovarian syndrome in more detail because there's so many consequences to PCOS, and quite frankly the conventional treatment is very aggressive as a first line approach or a first thing to do, when really if we look at this and we try to address the root drivers of the process, there are a lot of things that can be done naturally and nutritionally to very significantly help this. But we've got to talk about PCOS, the insulin resistance connection, some of these consequences to it, because this affects it's somewhere like 4 to 5% of menstruating females in the United States. It is the most common hormonal or endocrine condition amongst menstruating women. It is a huge problem. It causes infertility. It's a major cause of infertility. So we have got to look at this. We need to talk about this because there's so many things that you can do to help yourself. And guys, remember, these are things I'm trying to teach you guys, concepts and things that I see on a very regular basis that impact so many people, and that if we can just share and get this information out to people, that it's going to really help them better understand what's happening so that they can begin the process of trying to help themselves. Okay, it's really, really important. And this is a very, very big one, because when people are trying to have children, this can be a major cause. And it's also a risk factor for cancers. It's a lot of things that we need to talk about. So guys, remember, if you like these videos and you like what I'm talking about and what I'm sharing with you guys, then please do me a favor and share the video. When I look back on our live videos, I'm trying to decide like what do we want to talk about next, right? So I'm looking at the shares. The more shares that I see, the more that we are going to revisit and talk about topics similar to this. So this also, guys, this plays into metabolism. All these things are connected. So bottom line, if you like these videos, please do share them. That's your vote for, hey, do more like these. If we don't see shares, then no worries. I'm just going to move on to other topics, okay? So I appreciate you guys being here. If you have questions and comments, please post them. And then also, guys, if you don't mind, just in the comments, tell us where you're from. I'd love to hear where you guys are from. Just tell us your city and state or the country where you live. And we love to see those. And as always, if you have questions, please do post them in the comments. I might not be able to answer them because I can't see you guys in your comments right now. But if my staff or we'll go back and we'll definitely try to help fill in, or answer some of the questions that you guys have. So anyway, let's talk about blood sugar and polycystic ovarian syndrome. So this comes back to these cysts on the ovaries that end up producing testosterone. Okay, so testosterone's typically it's the dominant hormone in men. Estrogen should be the dominant hormone in females. But what happens whenever your blood sugar is higher and you develop insulin resistance, meaning the insulin levels go up, your blood sugar levels go up? Insulin has some very, very potent and widespread effects that can be very negative. Insulin's inflammatory and it does a lot of things to the body that we don't want. That's why we want to keep insulin. Ideally, we want to keep blood sugar steady and insulin low. Okay? Because, guys, remember, insulin's job is to take when insulin levels go up, the job of insulin is to take the blood sugar that's in the bloodstream and pull it into the cells of the body so that the cells of the body can use it to produce energy. Okay? So if insulin stays high, it's not a good thing. It's a growth hormone, number one. So we've been talking a lot about weight loss, right? We've been talking a lot about metabolism because what are the most common complaints that I see every day? Loss of energy. People tell me I don't have any energy, I have fatigue, and I have an inability to typically lose weight, or they're gaining weight, right? And they're like, I can't figure out what is happening. So insulin is a huge thing that you have to look at. I mean, you have to look at insulin because it is a growth hormone. And when insulin's high, there are numerous negative effects with it being high for a prolonged period of time. And PCOS, guys, you're going to find out, is a very potentially negative thing that can occur from elevated insulin for a long period of time. Okay? So insulin resistance is kind of where the story starts. Now, if we wanted to, every time we talk about something, and every time someone tells you that you have a particular problem, you've been diagnosed with something, the question in your mind should always be, what? What am I going to tell you to say? What do you always ask when you've been labeled with a diagnosis? What is the question that you should always ask? Why? Why do I have this problem? So if someone says, you have insulin resistance, you're pre-diabetic, you have type 2 diabetes, what is your question? In your mind, whether you verbalize it or not, should be why. Because I'm going to tell you right now, if you have insulin resistance and you go in, most cases, not all, most cases you go into a conventional medical office and you have insulin resistance, or you're pre-diabetic, or you have metabolic syndrome, or you have type 2 diabetes. What are they going to tell you is the cause? What are they going to tell you is the cause of insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, type 2 diabetes? What is the doctor going to say? You got to change your diet, right? They're going to tell you it's diet. They're going to tell you that insulin resistance is diet and that you need to exercise more. You know what? Those are valid things that do need to be considered. But guys, you know, right? I've talked about this a lot with you guys. If you haven't seen, guys, if this is your first time on live stream with me, then welcome. Please tell us where you're from, guys. Let me know where you guys are from. Put your city, state, or the country where you guys are residing. But guys, I teach this a lot. What are the two most commonly missed things that we see with blood sugar problems, or type 2 diabetes, or insulin resistance, or metabolic syndrome, or prediabetes? What are the two most commonly missed things? Because we've already said what affects this. What affects insulin resistance and higher blood sugar? In a conventional office, you're going to be told what? You're going to be told, use a different color here. You're going to be told that insulin resistance, prediabetes, type 2 diabetes is because of your diet and lack of exercise typically. Okay, and those are what? Those are relevant, right? Those are relevant things that we do have to consider. But what are the two most commonly missed causes of insulin resistance or prediabetes, type 2 diabetes? What are they, guys? Does anyone know? I've taught it before. If you know, post it in the comments. What is the most common cause of insulin resistance that's not being checked and not being considered in the conventional medical model? Okay? All right. Number one is, you guys can't see. I started to write it up, but then I realized I didn't have room. So what is it, guys? Inflammation. Inflammation creates resistance. It creates insulin resistance. It promotes the resistance and sensitivity and loss of sensitivity of your body to your insulin. Higher inflammatory levels desensitize the cells of your body. In particular, every cell in your body has these things called receptors, where your hormones basically attach to it and stimulate the cell. Higher inflammatory levels decrease cellular sensitivity, promoting resistance, meaning it takes more of the hormone to stimulate the same effect. So, might you be struggling with insulin resistance, prediabetes, metabolic syndrome, type 2 diabetes? Maybe you don't have the best diet in the world, and maybe you don't exercise enough. But what about the inflammatory component? It's almost never checked. Okay? That's the number one thing. Now, what's the second thing that's very commonly missed when we're talking about insulin resistance? It's not usually considered in a conventional medical office. Because, guys, we're talking about a functional approach. We're talking about looking at the physiology and trying to understand how the body chemistry works and how other systems, like inflammation, would be immune, how inflammation is influencing an endocrine or a hormonal system. Because guess what? All the systems crosstalk. Your endocrine and hormonal system doesn't work independently. Your digestive system doesn't work independently, and if it malfunctions, nothing else does. That's totally incorrect. Everything's connected, okay? So what's the second thing? And guys, if you like this and you enjoy this information, please do share our video. Remember, this is a way to vote for what you like, but also help us help other people. Help your family, help your friends, help them learn something that you know they're not going to get anywhere else, okay? All right, so what's the second thing that promotes insulin resistance? other than diet and exercise, and I just told you inflammation is a key thing that needs to be looked at first. Okay? Anyone know? Anyone know? Post it in the comments if you know. What promotes diabetes? I'm going to give you guys a hint. It's a hormone. It's a hormone. Higher levels of the hormone, this fourth thing, promotes diabetes, promotes insulin resistance. Because remember, our whole story with polycystic ovarian syndrome, this thing that's one of the leading causes of infertility, and in menstruating females, it's the most common endocrine condition, problem in menstruating females. What other than diet and exercise and inflammation, what's the fourth thing? And it's a hormone, guys. It promotes higher insulin. It promotes higher blood sugar. It's a stress hormone. Come on, someone knows, right? Post in the comments if you know, or if you think you know. Just take a guess, right? No one's grading you. Just take a guess. This is how you learn. Stress hormone. Cortisol. Cortisol. Your stress hormone, cortisol. And guys, where's cortisol made? Can anyone tell me? Where's cortisol produced? It's produced by there's two glands. They sit on top of the kidneys. What are they called? Adrenal glands. Okay? The adrenal glands produce cortisol. Now cortisol, one of the effects of cortisol is that cortisol will raise blood sugar. Do you guys know that? At night when you sleep and you're in a fasted state, that your body actually produces more cortisol as a way to raise blood sugar so that your brain can continue to function and run all the involuntary processes of your body. Keeps you alive, right? So cortisol serves it's essential to life, but the problem is that if your cortisol is higher, and it can be, listen guys, what drives cortisol? Basically, stressors drive a stress response and the production of the stress hormones. So chemical stress, like inflammation, certain medications can do it too, but inflammation or chemical stressors, emotional stress drives up cortisol, guys. It's a sympathetic fight or flight response, produces cortisol. And then, so you got emotional and you got physical pain. Pain drives a stress response and produces cortisol. So all these things, which inflammation and cortisol are almost always neglected. Almost always neglected because, listen, your doctors and the people that you're working with mean very well, but the model of practice that they have available to you does not consider that. That's not taught in conventional medical practices and conventionally in medical school. Listen guys, they're trying to save people from dying and prolong your life, and they use tools that are typically medications and surgeries, but these things that are this new evolution of healthcare, which is really taking a functional approach, trying to be a better physiologist, trying to understand chemistry, is something you don't get in any kind of medical or doctoral curriculum. You just don't get it. It's getting in there more and more, but it's just not taught. And then the thing is that the insurance-based model of healthcare does not reimburse your doctors for teaching you this. They pay for prescriptions, procedures, and they give you a certain amount of time for an office visit. So it better fit into that time, and if it goes over, then they literally are not getting reimbursed for it. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. It's what it is. That's why we have to share this message. We have to teach each other. We have to learn. We have to be our own advocates. We have to learn to be better partners with our doctors. We have to take personal responsibility for ourselves and help ourselves. You cannot be passive, a passenger in your healthcare, guys. You cannot be. You cannot be. It never works. Especially if you want to truly be healthy and vibrant, you've got to just work at it. And that's what I'm going to teach you, right? I'm going to break it down for you. I'm going to make it as easy as possible for you guys to help yourself and be better partners with your doctors. Diet, exercise, inflammation, and cortisol are essential when you're talking about higher insulin levels. If all of these things are in place, you've got a nasty recipe to have higher blood sugar and high insulin for a prolonged period of time, leading to resistance, which means your body doesn't respond to it anymore. Okay? Not good, guys. Not good, because guess what happens? Higher insulin has numerous negative effects. One of those is the increase of the activity of an enzyme. 17-20-lyase activity goes up. Guess what that does, guys? That takes a lot of your mother hormone called pregnenolone. It takes that hormone. Pregnenolone is used to make estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, cortisol, all these important hormones. And it causes you to convert a lot of that hormone into testosterone. Now, in a woman, when you become testosterone dominant, it is not a good thing, right? In men, that's more of a normal state. But I mean, this creates, the next video I'm going to do, I'm just going to tell you guys, I already know, I'm going to teach how this affects men, okay? And how this creates major problems and can create gynecomastia in men, you know, in a more feminine-like characteristics, deposition of fat around their waist. A lot of problems in men. But this creates major problems. This insulin resistance increases this enzyme, 1720 lyase, causes you to over-convert some of your hormones into testosterone. Raises your testosterone levels. Okay? Now guess what this promotes, guys? This enzyme, guess where it increases in number? Guess where it's mostly found? In the ovaries. Where are these cysts found? Poly, meaning many, cyst, ovarian syndrome. It's in the name. The ovaries. Poly, cysts. All right, so it's this PCOS is multiple, typically cysts found on the ovaries. 1720 lyase is in high concentration in certain cells of the ovaries. Increased and high insulin can cause this to increase, these enzymes to increase, and we think that's where the cyst formation comes from. It's from the increase in the enzymes. That causes those cysts produce testosterone at a higher rate, guys. Okay? Now you're dealing with a problem where your insulin, which could be driven by diet, exercise, inflammation, and cortisol, has caused an increase in this 1720 lyase enzyme, promoting cyst formation. The cysts pump out testosterone. Now you have a problem where this testosterone, the thing about this is that this testosterone levels, they feed into more insulin resistance because of the effects of testosterone. So you see this arrow. Guys, this is a cycle. This is a vicious cycle that you have to interrupt. Okay? Now the problem really, I mean, this thing just spreads out. So this is where you've got to understand that all of these different physiological processes do not work in isolation. They affect other systems and other processes. So when you get this higher testosterone, guys, you lose. So in your blood, none of these hormones are, like anytime you get hormones checked, your doctor will typically check total hormones and free hormones, right? So when we look at the thyroid, right, we can look at total T3, free T3, total T4, free T4. What's the difference, right? Well, I'm going to tell you, so with testosterone and estrogen, it's the same thing, guys. What happens is that, like with thyroid hormone, your total levels are the amount of the hormone that's free floating in the blood, nothing's attached to it, plus the hormone bound to a carrier protein in the blood. Okay? So in the blood it's called thyroid hormone binding globulin. It's a transport protein that binds to your thyroid hormone, carries it through the body, drops it off where it's needed to be used. So there's free and total. The free hormones is just measuring your free thyroid hormones. The total measures the free plus the hormone that's bound to the little carrier proteins that carries it through the body. Guys, when you have high testosterone levels, it drops the proteins that carry your male and female sex hormones, testosterone and estrogen. The sex hormone binding globulins. It's different than the thyroid. It's different proteins. They carry the male and female sex hormones. But so high testosterone will drop the sex hormone binding globulins. This is why it's important, guys. Because what happens is there's always a balance of testosterone that's free in the body. When it's free in the body, all the cells can be exposed to it and it stimulates them. When it's attached to this little protein that carries it through the body, it can't stimulate the body. And that's a good thing. You don't want a bunch of free hormone, because what it will do is it will overexpose the tissues to the hormone. And it will create a very potent androgenic or hormone effect, which you do not want. And what does that result in with PCOS? When you have high testosterone, but then you have more free-floating testosterone, so you get overexposure of the tissues to it. So it's very potent. What does that lead to, guys? It leads to all the symptoms of PCOS. Guys, have you ever seen acanthosis nigricans? You're like, what is that, right? Do any of you, or have any of you ever observed in the bends of the elbows, the neck, the underarm, dark areas where the skin turns dark in color, almost black or brown? It's almost a velvety texture. Have you seen that? That's acanthosis nigricans. Guys, this is the result of like PCOS, what you see with PCOS. It is not, it's a sign that there's a major problem with the blood sugar, okay, and insulin resistance. And oftentimes it means that there's increased testosterone and that PCOS is occurring, the cycle's occurring. Now guys, this leads to all kinds of negative consequences when you have this potent, this high level of testosterone. They're saturating the tissues. So what you'll see are things like irregular periods, infertility. You'll see unexplained weight gain, fluid retention, fatigue, mood swings, acne after puberty. That's a big one too, like acne on the skin. Definitely, where else would it be, right? On the skin. Acne that's after puberty is a major thing that you'll see. Hair loss is really common, guys. And then unwanted hair growth, right? All the things you see with PCOS, like facial hair growing. One of the things interesting with, how does this promote hair loss right here? Guys, does anyone know how this promotes hair loss? Let me tell you what happens. Testosterone is a hormone, but guys, it gets metabolized and broken down into other forms. There's a lot of times when you have higher testosterone, the leading cause, or the cause of male pattern baldness is, let me use a different color. So it stands out a little bit. The cause is, does anyone know? Let me ask you that first. What form of testosterone, I'm going to give you a hint here, promotes male pattern baldness and is very, very likely to cause hair loss with PCOS in women? What form of testosterone? I'm going to give you a hint. It starts at the 5. Anyone know? There's a form of testosterone. It's supposed to be a star. 5-alpha dihydroxytestosterone. 5-alpha dihydroxytestosterone. We can measure this. And so insulin resistance, guess what, guys? High insulin levels, not only creates problems here with this enzyme, but high insulin will cause you to make more of an enzyme that will convert. It will increase your 5-alpha enzyme, which will cause you to make this very potent 5-alpha dihydroxytestosterone, which is, it's 20 or 50 times more potent than testosterone. I got it right here. Yeah, okay. It's actually, the enzyme is 5-alpha reductase, but it is, where is it in as far as quantity? I was looking, it's like 20 or 50 times more potent than testosterone. So not only are you creating all these problems, guys, you get this majorly potent form of testosterone. It is promoting all of these issues. It can cause hair loss, all these things that you're seeing. Guys, where do you interrupt this process, right? This thing, I wanted to make sure that you guys know this. It is the most common cause of infertility in the United States. This process, right here. This is extremely important. It's the most common female hormone disorder in menstruating women. This is huge. This is why you guys, I really needed to share this with you guys and talk about it. You can look at things like, you can see clear signs, like some of the symptoms that I just mentioned, but these patches of these dark areas that are velvety, bends of the arms, acanthosis nigricans. These are really important. This also, guys, is really, really important. This is associated with estrogen proliferative cancers. If you guys don't already know, this is absolutely not a good thing. And like I said in the very beginning, the first line defenses that are utilized in a medical office are typically going to be hormone replacement, like estrogen, estrogen replacement, or they're going to give you like metformin, something to sensitize you to insulin. Guys, what's causing the insulin resistance? What's causing the hormonal imbalances? Is the hormonal imbalance, this thing that's happening here, this PCOS, is it because you don't have enough estrogen? Was this at all what started this process? No. Was this what started this process, the fact that you were deficient in a medication that sensitizes you to insulin? No. And I'm not saying that those things aren't reasonable, because those things can really help you improve your quality of life. But what is causing the process to occur? Because you know that what you're doing is if you're just using a hormone, to shut down this, to try and decrease your symptoms by taking estrogen, or if you're just using something to sensitize you to insulin, you're just forcing chemistry on the body. You're not working with how the body is designed, and you're not addressing the root driver of the process. And I'm not saying that's not a reasonable thing to do, and that's not a reasonable thing. I'm just telling you that's not looking at what's causing the problem. So are you just kicking the can down the road until those medications start wearing out or wearing off? I mean, if you take estrogen, if you guys, if you take estrogens in like birth control for a prolonged period of time, there's this post-birth control syndrome where your body just will not make it anymore. You've disrupted the feedback mechanisms to the brain by taking hormones for so long that your body will the brain will no longer signal you to make those hormones. So you have to be on replacement therapy for a prolonged period of time. Forcing physiology on the body, fortunately we have that as an option if we need that. But guys, as a first line defense, doesn't it make sense that you're looking at inflammation, cortisol, diet, and exercise first? That you're using dietary strategies and you're doing things to address, like if you have inflammation, the question should be what's driving the inflammation, and researching and investigating that. If you have high cortisol, why do I have high cortisol? Because that's always secondary to something else. It's either going to be a stressor, something autoimmune, something else that's driving it. If your diet's terrible, okay, well let's work on the diet. But doing these things is the way to address the resistance to the insulin. Not necessarily just taking a medication, but you've got to realize when you go into your doctor's office, those are their tools, and those are good tools that help a lot of people and keep them from getting a lot worse a lot faster and give them quality of life. But that's not root cause, guys. That's not addressing the driver of the process. And if we're talking about helping people to have and live truly healthy lives, and we're talking about the most common cause of infertility in women and the most common female disorder in menstruating women, we've got to be talking about what causes it. We can't just sit here and say, let's just force chemistry on the body. That's great and all, but I personally, if I can do something to help to really help me actually live a vibrant and healthy life, that's what I want. I don't want to have to take something forever that's not even addressing why I'm having this problem in the first place, but it's helping me feel better. I don't want to do that forever. I want to get to the root of the problem. It's unacceptable. I mean, it's unacceptable. We need to be teaching people how to take control of their health. You have to be responsible for you. The thing is, no one can do this stuff for you. Diet and exercise, no one can do that for you. You have to do it. I can give you every bit of information, but you have to implement it. The inflammation and cortisol, you need someone to help you figure out what's driving that. I mean, that's for sure, or if that's even a problem. But there's a lot of things that you can do on your own, right? Diet and exercise are obviously a good place to start. Because this is the vicious cycle. So dietary interventions, there's some temporary supplementation that can help with like herbs and vitamins and minerals that can improve insulin sensitivity that you should be considering. But guys, this is all stuff that we have got to we've got to recognize, and we have to start working on as a society and individually. So I wanted to teach you guys about blood sugar and this connection to PCOS and all these negative consequences. This completely disrupts. I mean, insulin has so many negative effects. Not to mention like metabolism, guys. Like I mentioned that earlier, but metabolism is a big problem. Insulin is a growth hormone. You want insulin low and steady. If it spikes up, you're going to be gaining weight, period. You're going to be promoting inflammation. You're going to be creating lots of problems with spiking insulin. So guys, we have to take our health back. You have to take your health back. You guys might know, so I always get questions, and I always want to try to help you guys as much as I can with like what to do about it, right? Like what can you possibly do? So you want to try to break this cycle, obviously. So the best thing to do is looking here. So if your diet's terrible, diet's a reasonable place to start. You can do things like autoimmune paleo diets are not unreasonable. Paleo diets. Ketogenic diets might be reasonable. Now all these things, I can't give you guys individual medical advice because I don't know your cases and know you individually. So I'm not telling you to do those things, but I'm telling you that those things might be reasonable. Like diets like that. We've created the 6-week Hashimoto's transformation program, which is appropriate for really so many different chronic conditions. Blood sugar dysregulation, our program was designed to do 3 things. It works very well for autoimmunity, but it was designed to balance blood sugar, to improve gut health, and to decrease inflammation. That's what it was designed to do. And it tends to work very well for autoimmune conditions. But as a framework, you've got to work on diet. Exercise, you've got to start somewhere. Now, it might be that for a month or two, you need to focus 100% on diet and not exercise at all. Because guess what happens if you exercise too much when you're not ready? Well, one thing, it's you get negative feedback. If you feel terrible after you exercise, you're like, I don't ever want to do that again because it was miserable. But increased exercise can promote increased cortisol levels, your stress hormone. You can literally overtrain very easily if your body's not healthy and you're deconditioned. And you can spike cortisol, which feeds into this whole thing, right? Cortisol levels go up, blood sugar goes up, and this whole process is driven. So exercise is reasonable, but at appropriate levels for you, right? The rule of thumb for exercise is after you're done exercising, you should feel invigorated and like you're ready to go do something. You should not feel like you need to lay down for 30 minutes just to recover. If that's the case, you've overtrained. Okay? Inflammation and cortisol. The things that I like the most to check inflammation are C-reactive protein as a laboratory marker and homocysteine. Okay, those are really important. I like those a lot. I also like. I also am getting a phone call, which I'll answer in a second. Inflammation, C-reactive protein, and homocysteine. Guys, if you're autoimmune and you know you have an autoimmune condition, if you have Hashimoto's, Graves' disease, an inflammatory bowel condition, rheumatoid arthritis, psoriasis, any kind of autoimmunity, you have inflammation as a byproduct of that autoimmunity, even if C-reactive protein and homocysteine that I would use are low. You have to address the autoimmune process. Now, so inflammation, those are the markers I like to look at. If they're high, then you have to investigate why you have high inflammation. So I would look for things like pathogens, so like bacterial infections, viral infections, fungal infections, parasites. Is it an environmental chemical reactivity? Are you reacting to some kind of chemical in your environment? Is it a food reactivity? Do you have food sensitivities? Not food allergies where you swell up and your throat closes. Sensitivities. It's looking at a different part of the immune system. Do you have food sensitivities that are driving inflammation? What's driving the inflammatory process? It has to be figured out, or you're going to have problems improving this process. Okay. Cortisol. Cortisol, the best way to check cortisol is to do a 4-point test throughout a day, like a full daily rhythm of cortisol production. So there's a morning sample, 2 hours later, like 2 hours before bed, and before bed. If you wake up at night, there's a sample. There's salivary, there are urinary tests, there's a lot of different ways. The blood test where you get a blood draw, if you're going to do it that way, it's not as good, but you would do like a first morning blood draw between like 8 and 10, and you want to see where that first morning's cortisol is. Okay, that's a great way to do it if you have no other options. But we routinely get the cortisol testing, 4 points, and then all the hormones, the sex hormones, at one time. But that's only after we've worked up inflammation and we've looked at the thyroid and we've looked at all these other things first. Then we will go into advanced testing and figure out what's going on. So those are a lot of the ways to do it, guys. You just take a comprehensive approach and you work on getting yourself healthy. You stay positive. Don't worry if you fail. Don't worry if you feel like you're in a hole that you can't get out of, guys. Keep working at it. Keep working at it. Persistence is the key. And if you need help, reach out and let us know. You guys, I don't know if you guys know this, but I work with people all over the world. We work with people all over the United States. I do distance consulting, so we talk to people on the phone, Skype, FaceTime. We get labs. We can order labs around the country. We can do advanced testing. We just send the kits to your home, and you can do the test. And we can work with the distance, and I can help you unwind this if you need help. But there's a lot of resources and a lot of things you can do to really start helping yourself. If you're curious about supplementation that might be appropriate for this, what you want to do is you want to use supplementation that improves insulin resistance, right? That improves blood sugar and sensitivity. I've done over the past, last week, I did 3 or 4 at least live streams on blood sugar. Guys, go back to those videos, and I actually have, you can download my blood sugar protocols. You just go, click on the link, it'll take you to a website, you put in your email, it will give you my protocols, and you'll get access to, you can go to my actual online pharmacy. So we use a company where I have an online pharmacy, and I've handpicked the supplementation that I like to utilize, and I have folders specifically on blood sugar and then how to improve blood sugar. And there are things that help to address cortisol, help to address sensitivity to your insulin, and really are tools that you can utilize in the short term, not forever. Nothing should be forever. Your diet, your exercise, and everything should be utilized until you can get healthy, and then you taper off of supplementation, and you get your nutrition from your food, and you live healthy, and you don't worry about taking vitamins all the time. So many people, I think, are convinced that they have to have vitamins to be healthy. I use a ton of nutritional supplementation, but I am not an advocate of utilizing supplements every day of your life long term, unless there is some need for that. I use nutritional supplementation. I take systemic enzymes. I do all kinds of stuff that we don't ever talk about, because those are more like, once you get healthy, then we start working more on utilizing those types of tools to optimize human performance, if that's what the goal is. So that's something that I use. I take a lot of stuff, but the fact is that I'm taking them for a reason. A lot of people are just like, I feel terrible, and that's for blood sugar, so I'm going to take this. This is for stress, so I'm going to take this. Guys, that's not, I don't advise that. I advise you get someone to help you figure it out if you're at that kind of point. You need to put this together with someone that can actually help you try to put the pieces together, okay, so that you can be specific and you're not just spinning your wheels and wasting time. How much time do you have? I mean, really, in 10 years, are you going to be looking back at the 10 years that's gone by and say, and reflect on your life, and you're going to say, did you do everything that you could have done to be healthy, right? I mean, guys, we only have so much time. We only have so much time. I realize that more every day. And that's really something that, one of the things, like, I want to teach these classes because, these will live forever. I mean, as long as the internet's there, and I guess my Facebook page and YouTube's up, right? These things will go on, and people can learn from them, for a while. So, guys, that's all I have for today. I hope this has been helpful. Please share this with other people. Help your family. Help your friends. Help us help other people and get the word out about things like blood sugar and PCOS, the cycles, the things that are root drivers of this, how to consider working on them, because this will help you guys to take your health back. It will help other people to be better partners, better understanding about what's happening to them, so that they can become their own advocates. And that's really what we're trying to do here. Let's be a better educated public so that we can help our doctors help us, so that we can advocate for things like functional health care, like is what I'm teaching you guys about. Okay? I really appreciate you guys. Again, if you have any questions or comments, post them here. Please give me some thumbs up and some hearts if you've enjoyed this. I really appreciate you guys. If there's anything we can do, we'll do our best to help you guys out, okay? I appreciate you so much. Hope you guys have a wonderful afternoon, and I'll talk to you soon. Hey guys, Dr. Shook, thank you for viewing our videos. I hope they help you out. If you want to, just subscribe to our channel somewhere here. You can watch a video that YouTube's actually selected for you, so hopefully it'll help you out. If you need any other information or resources, just look in the description. We've got links to our website, to our 9 lab test guidebook, and everything else that we do. I really appreciate you, and I hope you guys have a great